from our community collaboration sessions, which happened from May to September 2022, we heard from a variety of different people, around 900 different individuals throughout the county. We did 14 different ways of input. We went to 5 different festivals, and we held a variety of different types of walking tours where we walked with members of the community and learned from aspects of each community, each town, and place in the county. In general, we heard a lot of people ask for restaurants in the towns. It's not a surprise, I think. We also heard a lot of needs for access to the river, new grocery stores, concerns on development and housing, new trails. And in our walking tours, we heard a lot about the value of downtown, the use and look of historic buildings, public space, and accessibility and sidewalks in those places. And I'll just quickly touch on what we heard from each town, and Janet's getting the inside scoop and being able to see our word clouds. But we heard from Strasburg that there's a lot of concerns about having a grocery store in the community, and another grocery store, or access to the river. We heard from Woodstock that, again, more demand for restaurants, downtown shopping, a Chick-fil-A, access to the river, athletic pool. So it's again, a lot of things that you think. A lot of this, you as we go through it, probably won't be of surprise to anyone who's listening. For Fort Valley, we heard concerns about reducing the potential for us to become like Northern Virginia. They want a slow development. They want to increase access to Passage Creek and look at more restrictive zoning requirements for Fort Valley. For Newmarket, we heard that they wanted more restaurants and food options in the town, more walking trails tied to the town, stores like hardware, grocery, and pharmacy stores, and a variety of different housing types. Some people asked for some senior resorts, apartments, other types of housing that aren't there already. And then in Orkney Springs, we heard that they actually want to see Woodstock improve, because that's where they typically go to. So they benefit if Woodstock benefits, basically, is what we heard. And we heard that as well in Fort Valley. Fort Valley said that they wanted to see investments in Woodstock. They wanted to see the roads improved out in Daisy and to protect the rural beauty of the county. In general, we heard that historic resources should be protected, that development shouldn't disrupt farmland, that we should support the growth of new and existing small businesses, that housing should be affordable in a variety of types, such as apartments, shared housing, and senior living, that we should increase access to the river, as well as new trails and parks in the county, and look at supporting new restaurants and investing in our schools, and that transportation investment should improve safety and access for all transportation methods. And a lot of people had a lot of good comments on Shengo as being a great asset for the county. We also heard a couple of things on major projects going on. We heard that people wanted to see, of course, river and creek access improved with ADA access as well. Major community facilities serving the entire county should be centrally located. That we didn't hear a lot on Quarter H. I know there's a lot of people talking about that right now. We actually didn't hear that much from the public for or against it. Development should occur in the towns where people already live, and where people already live. A new school should be built before 2045. There was a lot of concerns about overcrowding in Strasburg and Woodstock, and that was just concerns we heard from the community. We heard that there was concerns about when traffic and backups happen on Route 11 and 81. What are alternative routes that people could take instead of 81 and 11 when both get backed up or one gets backed up? We heard that towns and villages should capitalize on the rail trail if that were to come in, and how they could revitalize with that investment, and that there should be a unified effort to connect, expand, and improve recreational amenities throughout the county. At the walking tours, again, it's that we heard that people like human scale buildings, a mix of private and public spaces, and that downtown is a valuable asset, tax asset, and that we should promote infill and art to make sure that space is appropriately used. And that's what we heard from our community collaboration sessions. I'll quickly go over our survey data for you real quick, and then I will have some time to talk about it all. But in general, just to summarize the numbers on all of this, we had 102 people come out of our district information sessions last fall. around 800 people at community collaboration sessions this spring, summer, 970 survey opinions based on the household data that we heard. So it was 330 responses, but they represented their households, and they told us how many people were in their household. So overall, that's 1,872 people that we heard from.
And that's a really good number considering.
Yeah, it's a very high number. Plus, we heard from 52 high school students with a high school survey that we did. So that takes us up to 1,924 people, at least. You know, that's a rough estimate is how many people we collaborated with. And that's not to mention everyone we engaged with, including people that are listening to this show right now, or through Facebook or other different ways we did engagement with the public to let them know that this process is happening and you should be involved. I'm quickly going to go through, see which ones of these are. So most people who took the survey were in 2-people households, and most respondents, I mean, there were respondents throughout the county, as Janet's seeing with all the different towns and communities that have responded, but we did see a lot. The top districts were District 4, 3, 6, 1, 5, and 2 in terms of who we heard from the most in the county. Most respondents were female, although there was an equal amount of male respondents as well, almost equal amount. We saw that most respondents were in their 60s, 70s, or 40s and 50s, so those age ranges. We also found out that most people who took the survey moved to the county between the age of 20 and 40. Most respondents were white, which is something we would have expected to see, as most of the population is also white. Just to kind of give a quick overview of some of the characteristics of who took the survey, we found that they were very ingrained in the community. They had a strong connection to the church. Many had family here, and they moved here because of family, and there were a variety of different backgrounds. We asked people if the vision statement was upheld, and the majority of people said somewhat, which means that part of the vision statement may have been upheld, but the whole thing was not. On new vision ideas, overall, we heard a lot of concerns about education, as well as being rural or development, and concerns on growth. For our key, we asked people a set of key value questions as to what they value the most in the county. And number one was, I think students should receive an education that prepares them for a well-paid job or postgraduate education. And then the second one on that is, I don't want Shenandoah County to become just like Northern Virginia, which are two things you might expect to hear from someone in Shenandoah County. The last two was that they didn't want to sell things that they don't want. They don't want to sell their land and make a profit, and they don't want to be in a county that you have to own an automobile to live here. So that means that people may want to have the opportunity to walk places or bike places or take Shenandoah. For the total responses of everything we heard from, people are saying they want to see our rivers and streams safe and accessible, as well as having clean, safe drinking water. That they want to be able to hike, camp, and access the natural amenities and resources here, as well as fire and rescue coverage. Things that people said they weren't interested in were, having more chain restaurants or chain stores. Again, things you'd expect to potentially hear from someone in Shenandoah County. I'm just going to go over quickly what the top chapter items were, which is for historic resources, it was retaining historic landscapes. For natural resources, it was, again, our rivers and streams being safe and accessible. For economic development, it was supporting local food and restaurants and stores, and a lot of other local things are on that list as well that people liked. For housing options, people wanted to be able to work where they live. For community resources, they want to see better fire and rescue coverage. And I know I'm only telling the top ones, but many people may appreciate that right below that is internet access. For transportation questions, people said they want to see safe roads with less congestion. And then for new chapters, again, we hear a lot of discussion on that we need a chapter on education. We need a chapter on health. And when we talk about some of these new chapters that the CAC is looking at, we'll be able to show that they're taking the public's opinion to heart. People had said that they about the future of our villages and hamlets in the county, that if change occurs, it shouldn't tamper with the rural area around the communities. But very few people said that they should never change. So people accept that the villages and hamlets will change with time, and that change should be appropriate. For the last one, for the response travel time for services, people said that they want to see, of course, medical rescue, fire protection, law enforcement as the top three things in less than 10 minutes from where they live, which again, something that you might expect. Things that could be further away are like adult education centers, community centers, or mental health resources. Those are closer to 20 minutes or more, as to how far away they are from where the people live. And I'll close some of the results from the survey with two fun things. So again, Janet's the lucky one, gets to see it as I'm going through this, but we asked people what they wanted to see from a mountaintop in 2045. And so we took that data and fed it into an AI system called Novel AI, and it wrote a story based on the community's data. And so I'll read just the first bit of it, and then I'm going to show Janet the picture that we had another AI draw called Dolly 2. And we'll see if Janet thinks that this looks like somewhere familiar. It looks like Shenandoah County. So in the year 2045, I climbed on top of the mountain to look down on Shenandoah County. Looking out, I could see a small town, a farm, and a few small homes. The sun was shining bright with a deep blue sky. It was peaceful. There were no big cities, no construction, no signs of over-industrialization, no new highways, nothing but nature. That's, what it said, and here's the picture that the AI drew.
And that's what it looks like. See, that is really, really cool.
And I mean, if you zoom in, you can tell that the things that look like houses are little blobs, but at far away, it looks like Shenandoah County. And we did the same thing. We asked people what they wanted to see on the street in Shenandoah in 2045. And it says, in the year 2045, I traveled into one of the towns in Shenandoah County. And when I stepped out into the street downtown, I saw a large number of people milling around the streets. They appeared to be friendly, as if they knew each other and were having a great day. That's where it's interesting. I don't know where it pulls some things, but there's a lot more to that. And then here's the picture it drew.
See, that looks like a downtown I would love to shop in.
The only thing that we ask is why it drew people walking in the middle of the street, but
yeah, that would probably be me. If that person were wearing something orange instead of pink, that probably was me wandering around the middle of the streets.
But I think doing these types of things help show, the non-bias of the data. When we pull this data out, then we tell a machine to write something with it or draw something with it, it creates some things that can be recognizable by people who've been to Shenandoah County or live in Shenandoah County. And again, all this information is going to be on our website now, but we'll have the slideshow on that main page of shenandoahcounty.us/future. So these are, again, this is the results from the survey, as well as the community collaboration sessions. I'll give it back to Janet in case you want to ask any questions before we talk about the vision statement.
Was any of it overly surprising? I mean, you kept saying as you're going through and I'm looking at the different things on the screen, none of it was really surprising to me as someone who probably would have answered a lot of those questions the same way. Was there anything that jumped out at you like, wow, we didn't expect that at all? Or was most of it pretty much what you were kind of expecting?
I mean, we're still working through a lot of it to better understand everything that's been said. But I think in general, one of the main things that we were surprised about is that the third item on transportation improvements, and that's after repairing potholes and having safe roads with less congestion, is a system of pedestrian trails for recreation and walking. So people aren't asking for, new highways or interstate expansions. They're asking for more recreational trails and sidewalks and amenities. So we were pretty surprised to hear that.
And that kind of ties in because the one thing that was surprising to me when you were going through that list was the number of people that would like to be able to live in a community and not have to own a car. And that's not something that ever would have occurred to me. But as you were saying that, I thought, man, that would be nice if I could, because we see all the time on these TV shows on House Hunters and all these things that people they want to live in a neighborhood that's walkable to cafes and stores and things like that. But I never really thought how that would work here in our area. But you have opportunity to be able to do that. And clearly, if people are asking for it, that's the whole point of giving input for a survey like this.
Absolutely. And I think that as the CAC's kind of understood that having that type of growth in the future where it's dense or in a walkable setting helps protect what people have also said, which is protecting the rivers and streams or our farmland or the rural setting of the county, is having development in certain areas of the county. So yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. And like I said, I'm sure if people are listening, they'll want to look up the slides. And once we release the report, there'll be even more. But it's very interesting to hear what the public had said.
And with your permission, I can add this portion of the radio show to the YouTube channel, and people can go watch so they can see what you were talking about while you were talking about it, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, these slides are online, so you can always look them up too. So yeah, if you want to add to the YouTube channel, it'd be great.
So what kind of pressure does that put on the CAC members now when they're crafting the new vision, when they see all of these pieces that somehow have to play a role in writing that new vision, and they see that people aren't 100% in love with where that 2025 vision is now? That's got to be a lot of pressure.
Good question. So they've been working for the past 3 months on the new vision statement for the county. And so I'll go ahead and I'll read that for you, at least the part that's the most important. And what you're seeing is probably color coded because it's based on some of the comments that had happened, but I'll read based on what they fully approved last night. So our vision for 2045 is to strictly adhere to the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan in order to maintain the rural aspects and the character of Shenandoah County. So it continues to be, number one, a responsible steward, conserving, preserving, and protecting our environmental, recreational, historic, cultural, and scenic resources for residents and visitors. And number two, a unique place to live with responsible policies and public services Number two, a unique place to live with responsible policies, public education, and public services that enhance the quality of life, promotes appropriate growth within, and limits growth outside of our towns, villages, and hamlets so that agricultural areas and other open green spaces remain a predominant feature of the landscape. And number three, a great place to work, encouraging entrepreneurship, innovative and appropriate businesses and industries with versatile, trained workforce and varied jobs that pay a living wage. And number four, a collaborative community that continues to work with private and public entities to ensure Shenandoah County is healthy and vibrant. You'll notice I added the public education aspect because there was a lot of discussion last night when they finally agreed upon this general vision statement that the word education doesn't show up, even though predominantly that was the word that people were saying in the survey. So they wanted to make sure that they specifically called out that they want to focus on quality public education in the future.
And you and I were joking before we started recording, crafting this vision statement is probably the easiest thing that they will do from the point when they started up till now, because now the really hard work begins, which is crafting the plan that reflects that vision and tells you how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, and how much of it to do.
Absolutely. And I think luckily the plans can be broken down in a step-based process, but the further down we get into the plan, the more detailed it's going to be. And that's going to be harder to fully have consensus from the group, from the public. I think the easy work is done. The hard work is just ahead.
And the public input isn't over either. You mentioned earlier. So right now, so what's happening now? The vision statement has been approved. Now you'll actually start working on the plan itself, the defining the chapters and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so they agreed on 11 chapters for the new comprehensive plan. Our current plan is 10 chapters. It's also going to be a different layout with this new comprehensive plan. So it'll be in two parts. The first part is what we call the plan, where it has all the actionable items. And then we have the report, where it's a bunch of different data sources and maps and charts, a lot of things that explain why the plan is the way it is. But sometimes when you're reading through the plan, you want to know what are the high level aspects the county wants to achieve in the future. You don't want to have to muddle through a geological map or a population map or other aspects that you can reference in the back. So it's supposed to be cleaner, easier for people to read. And those new chapters, I don't on this slide, but it's, I'll pull them up real quick. We'll edit all that in between that.
The power of the pre-record.
Okay. So chapter 1 would be historic, cultural, and scenic resources. Chapter 2 is water resources. And chapter 3 is agricultural, forestry, and mineral resources. Chapters 2 and 3 used to be natural resources. They split them out to be more detailed, to fully cover, what's going on for those different aspects. And they recognize that water resources are a very important aspect and should have their own chapter. Chapter 4 is economic development. Chapter 5 is housing. Chapter 6 is community services and facilities. And this one, that original community services and facilities chapter, was pretty large. I mean, they covered things from fire and rescue and the sheriff to our schools and parks, as well as the hospital. So they suggested that then be broken up into a couple different chapters. So now we have chapter 7, education, chapter 8, health, chapter 9, emergency services, infrastructure, and technology, chapter 10, recreation, and chapter 11, transportation. And again, these titles that they decided upon are looking at, I should say, because it's nothing is in stone right now. Not the vision statement, not these chapters. They're still working through the process, but they've agreed that this is the general framework they're going to work with. All this information came out of that citizen input and discussions with the community as to what they wanted to see more in this new plan.
And like you said, this is still a draft. It's a working draft. So the final product could look very similar to this, but there could be different pieces of it that have changed. There could be pieces that get moved around again, but this is kind of the go-by that you're going to use looking forward.
Absolutely, yes. This is what we're hoping to do is by December, we'll have the comprehensive plan vision statement, new vision statement, the major challenges, which is a part of the original comprehensive plan, a general future land use map, as well as all the chapter vision statements. So we have 11 chapter vision statements, and then each of them have their own objectives and goals that they're coming up with. Later on, around this time next year, they'll be working on the strategies and actions below those goals and objectives. But right now, we're staying, higher up. So then when we talk to the public, we can ask them, hey, we heard that people want to see this. How would you like to see that happen? And that will inform the actions and strategies that will be written next year.
And then once all of that is finished, does it get presented to the Board of Supervisors? Do they have to vote and approve it? What does that finalization process look like?
No, that's a good question. So currently our timeline is looking at, of course, we update the board and the planning commission every month with all the data and what we're hearing and what the CAC is coming up with. In addition to that, we're hoping that, once we have that skeletal comprehensive plan developed by the spring of next year, we'll run that by the planning commission board, see what their first opinions are. And then throughout that year, as we engage the public and flesh it out more, we'll be meeting with the towns, meeting with the board and the planning commission and other groups you'll hear on this podcast or have heard on this podcast. Not podcast. You've heard on this radio show or will hear on this radio show. And then we'll make sure that their opinions are included and everything is the way everyone wants it to look. And then once everyone is okay with the plan, then it will be taken to the planning commission, the board, for their adoption. But only after we've had more public input and everyone is okay with the way it looks.
And then once that happens, then, and we've joked about how the real work is about to start in fleshing this out, but in reality, the real work is going to start once this plan in its final form is approved, because you'll have to start implementing the strategies and the action items.
That's right. Yeah. And I will say, I mean, everyone can look up the package, but right now, the CAC is thinking that the number one challenge that we're going to face in the next 20 years is accountability, making sure that everyone who's involved in this planning process and for this new comprehensive plan and what this comprehensive plan talks about actually follows it. So it certainly is going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be a challenge for a long time. It's been a challenge for the past 50 years of the county. Is making sure it's implemented.
Yeah, and that gets complicated too when the final say rests with a board of supervisors who are elected officials, and they only serve a certain amount of years for their term, and maybe new people come in. And so it really does get to be a little more complicated the further down in the weeds you get.
Absolutely. No, I think, like I said, I think that the easy part, we thought the easy part has kind of passed, getting the public input, hearing what people want, and then trying to, phrase that in a way that's very general about the future of the county. When we actually start talking about what that means and how that's going to be implemented, it's going to be a lot of interesting conversation. So we'll probably have another show like this where we update you based on that data.
So what can people do now? People that are listening that live in Shenandoah County or Shenandoah County adjacent, where can they go to see some of the things that I've gotten to see today on the screen, or to get more questions, or just stay in the loop about what is happening and when it's happening?
For sure. So they can go to shenandoahcountyva.us/future. Same website we've had throughout this process. We update it with new information. We have the full community collaboration session report on here. So I'm sure Janet will love digging through all of that, all 83 pages of it.
I might not print that one the way I did the 33-page document you sent me. The 80-page one I might actually just read on my computer screen.
They can also find our district information sessions report, which is from the fall engagement sessions we had last year. And here soon, we'll be able to post our final information on the community survey, but we will have the slides as well as some of this preliminary information, as well as the vision statement, general vision statement the committee has worked on there as well for everyone to view.
And I will say, when you talk about accountability, the other thing that has always been important to me personally is transparency. And the fact that you are showing everyone, these are the results. This is how many people said this in this town, in that town, speaks volumes to your I just lost the word that I wanted to, but it really speaks to the fact that you want everybody to know this is what we're doing. This is what you've said, and we're not making anything up. We're not trying to fit a narrative that we have created and are trying to make it look like the citizens and the residents want it. Having all of that stuff and all that information out there, I think is brilliant.
Well, we hope that everybody takes the time to read it. I know everybody has a busy life. And I think in general, most people, if we think about anyone in your life, most of us believe that, whatever's being done is it's going to be fine, and until it's on our doorstep that, there's a real issue. So, we encourage people to, stay involved, to read up on what people are saying, and to voice your opinion, because otherwise it will be a plan that doesn't include your voice. And we want it to include everyone's voices in the county.
And it's everyone's responsibility who lives within the county for this process to at least have that basic education. When you keep talking about how everybody says education is very important and they want that to have its own chapter in the plan, well, there's a certain amount of self-responsibility there too, that you have to be educated on this process, because you never know when you're going to run into a friend or a neighbor or a family member who is maybe ranting about this process and they've got it wrong. They don't understand what's going on. So it's all of our responsibility to be able to say, no, wait, this is how it actually is. And this is where you can go to get the information. So maybe if you don't want to read 80 pages, that's one thing, but at least read the summaries.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every report we release, we do a one-page summary so anyone could quickly read and understand what's being said. If they want to get the reason why it's always so long is some people like to know the details and they want to know where this come from and make sure that whatever the summary is actually true. So we're upfront with you. We give you all the details.
Well, Tyler, thank you. This has been really, really interesting. Not that all of the rest of your guests haven't been interesting, but they didn't have slides.
Well, I thought you'd appreciate being able to look at some of the things, and as we work through, probably, next spring when we have that skeletal comprehensive plan, we might do something like this again and do some slides and show what we see. But I also want to say too that if someone isn't happy with their current comprehensive plan where they live or here, comprehensive plans are living documents. So our comprehensive plan has been updated many times since 2005 in very small ways, chapter by chapter in the past. But just because it's in place doesn't mean it couldn't change. So the main point to take away is to be involved and be informed.
And they're written in crayon, not magic marker. Well, Tyler, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
No, thank you for having me on.